Welcome everyone. Glad you could make it so early in the morning. I would like to start by thanking the organizers for having me here. So it's a real pleasure. And let's get started. So what I want to do here today is tell you a little story about the hackathon I took part in. It was in the past winter, and it wasn't like a intensive two-day hackathon. It was something bigger. It was based online, and it ran for several months. So basically, anybody could participate. And it was organized by IBM. It had like nearly 600 participants. So I never dreamt of winning anything there. Actually, I was lucky enough to win 2 main prizes, but I'm not here to brag about this. I'm here to inspire you. So I would like you to get out from here and with energy saying, yeah, I want to try something like this. I want to, well, have an adventure. So, yeah, it's a brief story. Hopefully you'll enjoy it. A little bit about me. My name is Radek Ostrowski. My company is Fast Data Limited. I'm the big data engineer. I also work with TopTal. TopTal is an agency which which helps you find work remotely. So basically, you can be living wherever you are, wherever you want. You can be sitting on the beach, and as long as you have internet access, you can be earning good money. So I think this is quite cool. And so yeah, what I did last winter was this. I stayed for 3 months on the Caribbean coast of Colombia, like 400 meters from a beach, and working from a hammock. So I had a part-time job at the time, and then I figured, why not? I can just enter the hackathon as well, and it was well worth it. And here is the link if anybody's interested to know more, and you can come and approach me afterwards as well. Right, so I heard somewhere that you should start with the last slide first. So here it is. This is the last slide. What I would like to tell you is that you should really follow your dreams. So some of you might be dreaming about living in a perfect place, somewhere in a paradise, and then just working from there. And this is not something that's impossible. Many people do it. Many people live in Thailand or in South America, and they just travel around the world. They're so-called digital nomads. And you can just keep on working and earning good money. So this is definitely possible. So follow your dreams. There are many resources for you to do that. D stands for DevPost. This is the organizer of the hackathon I took part in. So if you're happy where you are, then maybe, well, you don't have to travel, but maybe you have some idea, or maybe you have some pet project that you would like to take forward. You would like to expand on it, build it up, see how it goes. But you can't find time to do this because maybe you're too busy working or you have a busy family life and so on. So participating in one of those hackathons could be very good. It could like help you to put your project on schedule. You could be motivated by having some competition or maybe by financial reward afterwards. So I found it good for me to keep motivated to work on my project, to work on my idea. And lastly, if you don't have any idea at the moment, but maybe there are some technologies that you would like to try out, something that you can't do in your everyday job, then this is another opportunity to enter a hackathon. So maybe you could learn a new tool or try something that you always wanted, but you don't really have time. So for me, actually, it was all of those things. So I wanted to travel and work remotely. I wanted to participate in a hackathon, and I had a neat idea, which I will tell you about. And I wanted to try out those technologies. So it all worked out for me. It was good timing. Actually, that's it. So you can go now. It was the last slide. Right. Today's story. So I'll tell you briefly about how it all started. I kind of already did. Then there'll be a quick demo. and I will share high-level overview of the architecture, then a little bit about Docker and Spark, and some tips on participating in a hackathon. Maybe if I can ask you if you can raise your hand, if you came here for this talk mainly because you wanted to learn about Spark. Some people. Okay, what about Docker? Did you come here for Docker? Or did you come here for a hackathon? Okay, so it's a mixed audience, very good. So it'll be a little bit of everything. So how it all started, IBM, last year, they really believed in the power of Spark, so they started investing in it. So they're setting up technology centers all over the world, investing in people that know Spark, and they pay good money for it. So for them, doing some marketing, and then at the same time, they also bought the weather company. And this is one of the biggest resources out there to help you predict weather, and was the weather forecast. So somebody from IBM must have thought, oh well, we can just run this hackathon, right? So we'll just ask people to use Spark, so then we can advertise our services, and then at the same time, for the project, they should use some weather data. So then it's also will publicize that we actually bought them, and see what happens. So they contacted DevPost, the organizer of the hackathon, and then they set it up, and they call it a Sparkathon. It's raining data. So basically, the main rules of the hackathon were you have to use Spark, you have to use weather data, and you have to run on IBM platform, which was provided for free for the participants. And then the rest is up to you. See what you can come up with. I'll show you the DevPost page later. So what was my idea? I think normally if you want to go for holidays and you would expect to have a certain type of weather, you would think, okay, maybe I want super sunny and definitely no rain. This is the case for most of the people living in the UK. I live in Scotland, so it's raining a lot. So people just say, yeah, I definitely don't want rain, and I want to have lots of sun. And then you might think, okay, so maybe I'll go to Malta because it's always sunny there. But then you check the weather forecast for the next week, and it's raining the whole week, which doesn't happen always, but it happens. So then you might think of another city, but the weather might not be what you would expect. So the idea, the pitch project for the elevator pitch for this was basically you define what the perfect weather means for you, what type of weather you want, and then the tool, the service will present you with a ranked list of cities matching your weather. And it's also hooked up with Skyscanner, which is like a search engine for cheap flights. And then so you can also try to find what's the cheapest price to get you there to your perfect destination. So the idea is quite simple, but I think it's also quite original. I was surprised that there aren't tools like this out there. This is the logo that my wife designed. I really like it, so I thought I'm going to show it here. The service is running. It's for free, so you can have a go. There are still some bugs, but as always. But if you're interested, you can visit myperfectweather.eu. So I'll show you a quick demo. So basically, this is the page. I have some preset buttons. First, people I showed it to, they thought it would be quite fiddly to start playing with all those controls of the temperature, precipitation type, and so on. So you can just start by pressing a button at the top, and warm, sun, and dry is the most popular. And then it will set the buttons in a certain way, and then you can go and adjust it and play around. So it's temperature, it's precipitation type. You can also choose like cloud cover, wind speed, humidity. And what it does is, I get the weather data from IBM, the weather company, and Skyscanner is the flight search engine. So let's try to use it. Let's see what it tells us today. So warm, sunny and dry. play around with temperature. You can choose an airport if you're interested in flying. If you're just interested to know what cities might have the weather that you want, it doesn't matter what airport, you can just leave whatever is here. Um, so let's see what it will tell us. So it's a list of several cities. Basically, the star you see on the left, and there is a number, so this represents the amount of perfect days. So the days with the blue background are the one that match the query. So as we see here at the top is Faro in Portugal, where only one day, Friday, doesn't match your query, and this is because I can see it has like a 10% chance of rain. So it's not linked there. And here you see the description for every day of the weather forecast. The drawback here is that once you get beyond a week, really, the weather forecast is not really good. So this is really like a tool for the nearest future. This could be potentially extended by adding like some yearly averages for months and so on later on. But then, and it's a guesswork really. And so apart from the cities, that I think by default I just put 10 cities out here. I also do a quick search for the cheapest prices and you can find. So for example here, the cheapest price found on this route was 1 day ago and it was £219. The second one, flying to Turkey, was £121, found five days ago. So you're really unlikely to pay this, but you'll pay more, a bit more, because this is like the cheapest price found. And if you're interested to know more, you could just click here on a plane button, and you get redirected to Skyscanner. It pre-fills the dates and the destinations. Of course, you can change the dates, and then you can look for cheaper prices. Actually, it's what it said. Look, so you can fly tomorrow to Turkey for £185. And there is this neat tool, find lowest prices. Normally it's pre-filled with the bar chart, so you'd see which days are more expensive, so you can adjust your query to optimize. And then you just click here, and then you can buy a ticket straight away. As you see, it's very simple. It just like kind of gives you ideas on destinations. But I didn't see any tool like this out there, so I thought it might be worth a try. And then I submitted this to this hackathon, and then I was successful. So just briefly about DevPost, they run lots of different hackathons. We could have a look at what hackathons are running at the moment. So there are quite a lot of them. The thing is, most of them are local, so you would have to go to like somewhere here. You have to go to Barcelona to participate. So this is not always viable for everybody. But they also have those online hackathons. There are 4 at the moment. Normally it's a bit more. Like this one is quite interesting. It runs in Morocco, and you should help them find like a optimal way to for taxi drivers to schedule the route as they pick up people and drive around and so on. And this one is something to do with flights. Yeah, you could. I think if you maybe not necessarily you'll find a hackathon of interest the first time you go to this page, but if you just bookmark it somewhere and come back to it in a month, there might be something that you really would like to do. And some of them are for free or for some simple rewards, and some of them have good prizes, like this one. You can win like $100,000 in total. So, so this was the hackathon I participated in. There were 573 people that took part, and this is my submission. basically, as one of the rules is that you have to do a short video, so then the judges can look at it instead of like looking through source code and so on. And just so you know, it took me like a week to do just a stupid 5-minute video, and it took me 2 weeks to do the whole app. So as you can see, I'm not a video maker. So you can have a read here if you're interested, but it's out there. Right, I think that's it demo-wise. So a little bit about the architecture. It's actually very simple, and it was kind of enforced on me a bit by the competition itself. So I have to run in the Bluemix platform, so it's the IBM cloud service. And so the weather API is just like a RESTful service you can query. Basically, you just give it like latitude and longitude for the place that you're interested, and you'll get the weather forecast for this. And you can choose if you want like very detailed weather for very near future, for a few hours from now, or for tomorrow, or for 3 days, or what I'm using is the 11 days forecast. So I would have a play app and Scala running inside of a Docker container, and it's deployed in a Bluemix service. And the app, what would do once per day, it would download all the raw weather predictions for all the cities of interest. Then it would push it into Cloudant, which is kind of like MongoDB JSON store, but it's a distributed database running in Bluemix as well. And then at the time, I had to use a Spark notebook, as there was no integration. You cannot just upload your source code to run your Spark code. You had to use a notebook. But now they added it in as well. So, but basically, what I'm using Spark as an ETL tool. It will fetch all the raw weather data. It will parse it. It will extract all the relevant information I want, and then it will push it back to the database. So then when a user navigates to the website, a query is run against Cloudant, and then the results come back, and they are presented on the website. And then Skyscanner is an external tool that you saw how you can get to it. So just you click on, and then you get redirected to another page. Just to say, like the whole app is like, if I don't count the HTML and JavaScript for the first page, like everything is like not more than 200 lines of code, so it's very simple. So let's start with Docker. As the saying goes, the best things in life come in small containers. So I think Docker is a really good tool there. Have anyone here used SBT plugin for Docker? Not many. Nobody, actually. So I found it by accident, but I think it's really, really cool. So in my case, I have this play app, which runs my code and so on. But then how do I go to have it running in Docker? So I could start writing on my Docker file, making sure I have some special script that will execute the service and so on and so on. With this plugin, it's just one command line. I'll show you what it is, but it's very easy. And it lets you change your build process for your project. So by starting with your code and executing one line with SBT, not only you build everything, but also you end up with a container that you can just run straight away. So it was very quick for me to just use it to test out the app. And it runs in the IBM container service. And what I also did here, I tried to run the same Docker image in Docker Cloud. So I just took whatever I had, I connected to AWS with Docker Cloud, I pushed it, and it worked straight away. So this is like a power of Docker. If once it's running in one, then it will run on every other cloud platform that supports it. So what you have to do with this SBT plugin, you just add several parameters to your build file. Some of them are optional, like the Docker base is optional, and maintainer, and so on and so on. So realistically, you could just not add anything, and it will still work. If you're interested, it will generate a Docker file for you, and then it will use it to build everything out. But you don't really have to see this. So the command is sbt docker publish local, and it basically builds your whole project, and then it creates the container, shoves all your code into it with all the dependencies, and it creates a startup script that if you run the container, the script gets executed, and script has all the parameters to run your Docker container and set it up, and off you go, your play app is working. So I found it really useful. Then if I were to deploy it in Bluemix, they have some CloudFormation tools that you can install. So you just have to log in, and then you can push it to the service. So basically, you have to rename it first, and then you push it to the cloud. And you can start it both by command line or from the user interface, and as they're running. And the only time, like the longest what it takes is actually to push your image, but then if you've already done it before, it will be only the layer of changes, and otherwise it can be seconds, and you have your new image running in the cloud. So I think it's quite powerful. Just out of interest, this is like a UI for running your containers in Bluemix. The thing which is not quite so easy to do via the command line is to add extra services. So for example, here I would normally start it with the UI, and I would add like the weather service or the database service, so it works together with my container. Right, are there any questions for Docker? Right, we can take them later. So Spark, how I use Spark here is I don't really take all advantage of what it takes, of what it can give me, what it can provide me. It's such a powerful tool, and I don't really have a big data set. It's just few JSON files for all the cities that I want to use. So basically, you could use anything else here because all the data fits on one machine. But if potentially I wanted to take it further, if I wanted to run all this prediction for all the cities in the world, and maybe try to come up with something smarter, do it in a streaming fashion, add some machine learning algorithm, maybe try to predict and recommend to people the destination that they would like based on other factors, then Spark could come in really useful. What I will briefly show you is how very quickly you can take some raw JSON files and turn it into something useful with Spark. So I'll use a Spark notebook for this. I'm doing good on time. Can you guys see it at the back? So basically, it's like a Spark notebook. It comes from a Python notebook. It's something that runs in your browser, and then it connects to a Spark server running somewhere behind the scenes, and it ships it all the commands that you want to execute it. And it keeps track of everything that run in a special context. So then, just directly from your browser, you can run all the code you want, and you can basically connect. If you have a huge cluster somewhere, you can connect to it from your browser and run different jobs. And I find it particularly useful for doing presentations like this. So it's a code that's already tested, so it's kind of live coding, but you know it should be working. So you execute the cell by pressing Shift-Enter. So what we'll do here, we'll just download the weather data set I have prepared. And the really cool thing I found about Spark is that it supports multiple data formats. So here I just tell it, the file is JSON, just read it in for me. And then it will read it into a data frame, and I don't really have to tell it anything. I don't have to tell it about the data types or anything. It will just infer most of it itself. So let's have a look. Let's just display one entry of what it is. So this would be a JSON file. Here it's presented slightly different in the form of a table, but you can see there is like an ID field, an airport field, and country. Those are the extra things I added. But then the forecasts and the metadata, it's the original thing that comes from the weather service. So this is just one entry, and you can see there's like quite a lot of stuff happening there. Not so easy to understand straight away. So let's see how many of the entries I have. 101. So it's 101 cities that we'll be looking at. So I did all the hard work for you over here. I extracted all the meaningful attributes that we can actually use. And interestingly, you could do SQL type queries and then go deeply inside of the object. So it's a layered JSON object. So you have like a parent and a child and so on and so on. But inside of a SQL-like query, you can go inside of it and you can extract the fields from within. So let's see how it looks now. A bit more legible. So DOW is a day of the week. So you can see it's an array of 10 or 11 entries. So it will be like local time, num, max temperature, min temperature, and so on. Notice here, the first entry is missing. It's because the first entry is for today. And if you're interested in the long-term weather prediction, you don't really care about the weather for today. So sometimes it's missing the first entry. And it's also, if you run the query like in the evening, then it doesn't really matter what the weather was because it's no longer a prediction. So what I do here, I try to predict like from tomorrow. So we just skip the first entry in all of the rows. And some other attributes is the like wind speed, HI. This is like the perceived temperature, the wind direction, and there are some other things as well. What they do, they also give you an icon code, which is quite neat. It comes with a bundled set of icons for the weather, so you know, like the sun and the cloud and the thunder and so on. So you don't have to do it yourself. You just have to get the number, and then you can populate it with the correct image. So this is the most complicated part of the whole project, I think, the cell. And basically what I do here, I create a case class for the interested parameters that I really need. And then I go through every row and then through every array inside of every row, and I extract it. So I come up with a bigger list of all the singular entries for every day. And what it will look like is something like this. So this is actually something that we can use for finding our perfect weather. So you have here the day of the week and all the parameters. And then here it says, okay, so this is for Alicante. So this is the next 10 days weather prediction for Alicante. And then it will be for other cities. Next one is Amsterdam and Athens and so on. So it's the finale. We can try to look for our perfect weather. Here you can just run a SQL query if you want to. So here I say the min temperature should be bigger than 20 and cloud cover smaller than 30 and 0 chance of rain. So here it is. We have 6 matches. Two days for Athens, 2 days for Palermo, and 2 days for Valletta. So here you couldn't really know, if you really wanted to go somewhere for holidays, probably 2 days of your perfect weather wouldn't be enough. But if it were, then you could check the price of the flight, which one is cheaper, and decide to go there if you wanted. If you're interested in flying a kite, So let's say you promised your child that you will fly with them and you teach them how to fly a kite, and then you check the weather forecast for the place where you live and there's absolutely no wind, then you might run this query, just check where the wind is between 16 and 32 kilometers per hour, and then if you have money and time, fly there with your child to show them how to fly a kite. So what else I do here, I just count by the amount of days that might the query straight away. So here, again, Alicante comes up as perfect in this case, and yeah, the list of other cities. And lastly, if you're interested maybe in going fishing, then probably you want the sky to be a bit cloudy, so it's not too sunny, so fish don't hide too deep in the water. Of course, you would need also a place where you have water. It doesn't provide you this, but anyway, just out of curiosity, what it would give us is a list of other cities. And I had to mess with this query a bit because I'm actually from Torun, so I wanted it to show up on the results bit. But here it is. As you see, like I'm not using huge data sets, and I don't have a distributed cluster running behind it. Everything runs on my machine. But Spark can be also useful in just doing simple ETL jobs because of the amount of like tooling it has and the data formats it supports. Right, so let's get back to the query, to the presentation. Maybe to sum up this weather prediction and so on, this is a very nice use case, I think. If you were testing a new umbrella and you lived in Canary Islands, then how can you do that? You have to go and enter under the shower or something, I don't know. So this girl here, she actually tried the My Perfect Weather app, and it showed her that Edinburgh is a place where you're almost guaranteed to have rain. So she flew over, and she and her cat are happy because the umbrella is working nicely. And those guys on the sides, probably one of them is me, like in the rain, not very enthusiastic. All right, so this is like the last part of the talk. I want to tell you briefly about the hackathon aspect of it. As I already mentioned, it wasn't something like this, like you see here. It wasn't all packed in like a few days. It was the online hackathon. Oops. But maybe before you decide to enter one, you can ask you this question: should you enter a hackathon in the first place? Well, you should like the initial idea of it in the first place. So if it doesn't sound right, then just skip it. Don't waste your time. Then a second really important aspect is the time. So do you really have time to work on it? It's not just, well, I enter the hackathon and then I will win. You need to work on it. So be sure you can put it in your schedule. Because I work remotely all the time, it gives me a bit more flexibility. But you might be able to do the same. You might be able to work weekends or evenings, or I don't know. But you have to know that you need time to work on it. What else? You must feel enthusiastic about it, right? If you just enter it just because I enter, because it will be good for me, then I don't think it's going to work out. You must really want to do it, and well, feel motivated, or by the challenge itself, or by the technical stack, or by the technologies you can use. And lastly, but I think the most important part of it is you should feel that you're doing something creative, or that you're learning something. Because the probability that you win the hackathon, I think it's quite low in general. Depends how many participants are. But here, there were like 600, so I would never expect that I will win. But what's the most important is that for me, this was like the best project I worked on. Like I worked on many projects, but this is the one I enjoyed most. It was my idea. I could choose technologies I wanted. I learned a lot, and I really enjoyed it. So for me, this is like an award on itself. So if you think this will happen to you, then just go and start it and work on it. And at the end, maybe you'll win, maybe you won't, who knows? But at least you know you didn't waste your time, and you learned something. So how to win a hackathon? This is like a few tips I came up with. So the first one is treat it as your normal job. So don't just I don't know, work on it 5 minutes per day and then just ignore it. Like if you want to win, it's your job. You have to dedicate. So you focus on it, and you treat it as a real job. Well, there is nobody standing behind you, but that's what it is. That's what it takes for you to win something. The next tip is you have to know your strengths and your weaknesses. And so in my case, for example, I'm a terrible UI designer. I'm a backend developer. So I would basically spend 2 weeks just doing the website. And then one other rule of the competition was that it had to be running on mobile devices. So then I figured, well, if I start doing now like an iOS app for this, I will never finish. So basically, I just took a template, some open template from somewhere that was scaling for mobile devices as well. And I used it, and that's it, and it's working. So I just found the one which was as close to what I wanted to look like, and then changed some images, and now it's done. But you need to know your strengths and your weaknesses. Another tip, this is, I think, optional. Some of us think that like having the idea is the most important part, but no, it's not. It's how you execute it. What I think is also important is that you look at the judging criteria, because this is how, at the end, you'll be ranked. So don't just get carried away with your work, and you're working, you're doing whatever, and you're so happy, and then you forgot that, for example, your app had to run on mobile devices, or it had to do something. So make sure you look at the rules and look at the judging criteria. So you don't miss the requirements. So they are kind of similar, those two. And lastly, schedule. Make sure you plan it so you don't run over time. If you submit your application 2 seconds too late, then you're out. So it's better to submit early than late. And actually, what comes behind this is like a strategy that you can apply to many projects. It's this minimum viable product rule, whereby you start with something small, something working, and then you add onto it. You add an extra feature. So then, for example, in my case, would be one day I added search just for the temperature. So then I could see the cities by temperature, and then I added more, and so on. So basically, you start small, and you build up. If the time runs out at on 3 there, 4 here, basically, somebody has an unfinished product, they'll submit it to the competition, and it will get rejected straight away because it doesn't work. But if you submit, I don't know, the motorcycle or the bicycle, and the competition run out of time or whatever, you might be the winner of the competition. So start small and build up. And then you use all those rules, and you win it, right? You'll get the main prize. So I wish this was so simple. It depends on many things. And it depends on what mood the judges are on the day when they are looking at the videos, or those things like that. But I think it really depends on your competition. So how good they are, what type of project they submitted, and so on. So at the end, it's down to luck. But if you did this project because you really enjoyed it and because you learned something new, you're the winner already, right? So all the prizes or whatever is just a cherry on an already good cake. So as you might imagine, when I saw another Spark competition coming up, I was super excited. Yeah, I'm gonna win this. I will apply all these tips and all the experience I learned. And so I submitted. I actually submitted even 2 projects. I said, yeah, like this, I'll increase my chances. And another motivation here was this: for this hackathon, the main prize was $50,000. So I was like, wow, so like, this is like my dreams. And I didn't win. But like the judges just decided that the competition was better, and I agree that they had really good projects. But what I did win was a public award. So people that voted, they decided that my app was the best. So I didn't win £50,000, $50,000, but I won something. And this is like 3 days ago. I flew to New York to get the prize. So I had a big check that I received on the stage, and then I could like show it off in New York. So it was quite cool. But anyway, I had fun while working on the project. So I think this is the most important thing. So basically, what I want you to take away from here is feel inspired, have dreams, and then just go and try them. Everything is easy. I think most of us here are programmers, and we are so lucky that we can do whatever we want. We can be traveling the world, living in Thailand and things like this, and keep on earning good money. So, and hackathon is one way of on fulfilling yourself with project-wise and technologically and so on. So that's me. Thank you. Are there any questions? Oh, there's somebody there.
Hello. Spark Notebook, is it free or not?
Yes, it's free.
So I know that Databricks were actually wanted to sell it, so I'm not...
Okay, so when I say Spark Notebook, I actually mean the tool called Spark Notebook. This is also like a category of tools. So there are several, like the Databricks Cloud is a kind of a Spark Notebook which runs and is hosted by Databricks. There is a Spark Notebook called Zeppelin, there is a Spark Notebook called Jupyter, and there is a Spark Notebook called Spark Notebook. So that's the last one I use here. And yeah, it's open source, you can download it. And actually this presentation, it's submitted there as open source, so if you download the main, you can play around with this code as well.
Thank you.
All right, so thanks for attending.